Welcome. You are listening to the Be a Better Being podcast hosted by Michelle Zellner and Sasha Berscheid. Michelle and Sasha are here to give you information and inspiration to help you live your healthiest, happiest lives. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings. Thank you for tuning in to the Be a Better Being podcast. I'm Michelle Zellner, your host. And as we continue with National Wellness Month, I am super excited to have a deep dive on this topic because I'm pretty sure it is one that we really haven't covered. I do wish Sasha was here for this one because if you all listen to our episodes, you know that one of her non-negotiables is sleep. Well, that's exactly what we get to talk about today. I'm super excited to have Seth Davis, who is a certified sleep coach, join us on the show today. Welcome, Seth.
Thank you, Michelle. It's great to be here.
This is such an important conversation because I know years and years ago, I really struggled with getting quality sleep. I've been doing what I do in the wellness industry and health coaching for almost, well, now actually officially 26 years. And the number of people that struggle with sleep, it is astonishing. So everybody needs to hear this conversation. I can't wait to dive deep into it with you. But why don't you go ahead and give a little background on you for the audience, and then we'll take it from there.
Sure, thanks. I'm an adult sleep coach from Denver, Colorado. I work one-on-one with people to kind of come up with individualized sleep plans to help them sleep better. I work with companies to help their employees sleep better because when your entire workforce is rested, then everything is better for the company and everybody performs better. So I do that. My company's name is called Sleepably. And so we also provide sleep coaching for kids as well. So we work with parents to help their children sleep better. And just a quick story is I actually started this because I struggled with sleep myself on and off for about 15 years. So I wanted to learn how to do things better naturally so I could, help myself and then turn it into a business to help other people as well.
Well, and you have such an important role to play because I think, as we transition through phases of life, we're obviously going to have periods of time where we struggle with our sleep, having, brief periods of time of our lives where we have insomnia or the stress is a little too much and it's keeping us awake at night. And all of that is normal. But I really believe that the chronic sleep issues that are really starting to be evident in younger and younger people are like almost all of our chronic issues very much due to our lifestyle.
Mhm.
So I guess let's start with you first. When did you first start having these sleep issues, and when did you realize that you had a lot of control over maybe setting yourself up to get better sleep?
Sure. So I would say that I kind of struggled on and off when I was a child, but once I sort of got into the real world and graduated from college, that's when I started to notice the sleep issues were worse. I actually started out as a journalist. So I worked for a newspaper for a while and I had, kind of irregular schedules and I had a lot of stress around deadlines and performance pressure and things like that. And then just being a 20 something and having those kind of bad habits around sleep and just kind of living my life. So all of those together kind of combined to cause those sleep issues that just sort of, on and off, they would just kind of dominate my life and I'd be worried about them and all those things. So that's really when it sort of became evident that I had a problem. And I think like a lot of people, I sort of just, kind of soldiered through it and just dealt with it. But at a certain point, probably about 6 years ago, I just knew that, I didn't want to rely on sleeping pills or try to find the next great sleep supplement. And I needed to do things, learn what I was doing wrong so I could correct that and just do it naturally. So I started doing a search for sleep coaches because I knew that there was such a thing as a pediatric sleep coach, but was there an adult sleep coach? And I found out that it was sort of a fledgling career path. So not too many of us out there. And so I thought, I could either pay somebody to sleep coach me or learn as much as I can, apply that to myself, become a sleep coach, and then help other people. So I decided to go that route. And I think through all that knowledge, just kind of learning how you do have a lot of power over what your behaviors are and your thoughts are and your stresses and worries. And once you start to, kind of exercise that power, then you can really make those improvements that are going to be helpful for the long run.
Well, and I love that it is finally, I think, starting to be well accepted that sleep is a necessity, not a luxury.
Mhm.
I think for many, many years, it's like a badge of honor, like, oh, I don't need to sleep, or I can get by
Mhm.
with less sleep. Well, both of those well, the first statement, I don't need to sleep, 100% false. The second statement, you can get by. Of course you can. I mean, we're humans. We can get by punishing ourselves in a lot of ways and we'll get by. However, because sleep is foundational, all the rest, repair, recovery, hormonal reset, and rebalance that is supposed to be going on during our sleep phases, if that's not happening, it is going to impact us on a physical, mental, and emotional health level, not just the next day, but the chronic situations that we're going to be at increased risk for if this becomes kind of the lifestyle habit of not getting that quality and adequate sleep. Tell me a little bit about your kind of particular, or maybe the clients that you see. Like, what are some common themes that you see running through their issues?
Sure. Yeah, I think that, some of the common things are related to the modern times that we live in. So, of course, now we have devices, we have phones, we have tablets, and we can bring our laptops into bed with us. We can work later on our screens. And so the electronics is sort of something that happens for a lot of people. A lot of people kind of go down that rabbit hole of let's see what's on TikTok, or, I'm just going to check my work email before I go to sleep. So I think having constant access to all of that information and all of that entertainment and things can sort of disrupt our sleep or cause us to not sleep as much. We kind of, you know, prioritize those things instead of getting enough sleep. So that's one thing I see. And then stress. Stress is a big thing. We just in our daily lives, we're juggling kids, we're juggling work. We are, often just putting pressure on ourselves about other areas of our life. And so that stress, when it's time to wind down for bed, our nervous system is all wired. Our brains are racing. And so we're just not able to rest as comfortably and wind down for bed. So just that ability to let ourselves kind of separate whatever happened during the day and embrace the relaxation at night seems to have become something that we're not as capable of as we used to be. Yeah. So I'd say those are two of the biggest things I see.
Yeah, I agree. And, I am old enough. Yes, I am old enough to remember a day where we didn't have technology that, yes, maybe there were TVs in the bedroom, although I never had that growing up. That was
Mhm,
not a thing. But certainly we didn't have computers and laptops and tablets and iPhones and all of those things.
mhm,
And yet I had sleep issues when I was in my 20s. I was that kid who would wake up at 6 a.m. no matter what.
mhm,
I go to bed at 9, I'm up at 6. I go to bed at 2 a.m., I'm up at 6. Like, the slumber parties, the parents just loved me
mhm,
because I was up at 6 a.m. So I think sleep is a skill like everything else, and some people are naturally better at it than others. But as I also went through college and started grad school and started personal training clients started at 5 a.m. and maybe ended at 7 p.m.
mhm.
And the things I was doing throughout the day were definitely preventing me from getting quality sleep. And so I am a firm believer that the good night of sleep starts in the morning,
Sure.
because everything you do or don't do is going to impact your ability to get into a space of rest, and then for your body chemistry to also work the way it's supposed to work, so that all of those messages that are supposed to be sent to help us fall asleep and stay asleep are actually being sent. How much, or let's maybe go into that a little bit, of the actual science of sleep. What is happening when we sleep? Why do we need to make sure it happens? What are maybe some of the, chemical things that are going on that are preventing us from sleeping?
Sure. So yeah, you kind of touched on it earlier where, during sleep, our body's going through repair phases. Our brain is kind of receiving some nighttime therapy and so our brain is kind of is learning things, is processing things, it's storing memories. And then our body is restoring itself and producing growth hormone and repairing tissue. Basically from head to toe, we're going through kind of a nightly repair for our whole self. And so if we don't get enough sleep, so if we're not giving ourselves enough opportunity to sleep, then we're sort of depriving ourselves of the different stages of sleep. And if we're not getting quality sleep, then we're also not getting as much of that. So I guess just talking about kind of how each night goes, we go through different stages of sleep. So a lot of times you'll see it divided into 5 stages. We have stages 1 and 2 are lighter stages of sleep. So stage 1 is you're sort of drifting in and out of sleep, and you might be awake, you might be asleep, you're not sure. Stage 2, we go a little bit deeper. Your breathing starts to slow, your muscles relax, and you kind of start to get into sleep more. And then stages 3 and 4 are deeper stages of sleep. So that's when, your body's fully relaxed, your brain waves slow, your breathing slows, and that's when you really get into those restorative deep phases of sleep with where we're producing growth hormones and tissue repair and all those good things. And then finally we have REM sleep, rapid eye movement sleep. And that's where you're more likely to have dreams, where your brain is more active. And that's sort of that nighttime therapy where we're processing memories and the things you learned during the day are being stored and dissected. So we go through those different stages of sleep about 4 to 5 times a night. And ideally, that's how much we want to get. And so, when you get your full amount of each of those stages of sleep, that's when we are adequately repaired and restored and refreshed and all those things. But if we deprive ourselves of getting enough sleep or we're having low quality sleep, then we don't get what we need from that sleep. And we're more likely to, feel it during the next day, and our health can be affected, and all those things that go along with inadequate sleep.
Yeah, it's one of those things that unless you've actually experienced a great night of sleep, you might not even fully appreciate what that is supposed to feel like,
Mhm.
right? We get used to operating at kind of a subpar level because this is just what I am. This is how I sleep. And I guess I'm fine. And then maybe you, for whatever reason, get a really great night of rest. You're like, wow, that's amazing. This feels different. Everything is different, right? Because your body chemistry, all these chemicals that we have operating our lives, if we are not sleeping properly, those chemicals are all off balance. And then it's going to affect everything, how we think, how we feel, how we function, the energy we do or don't have, the degree of hunger we do or don't have, the brain processing and the judgment and the ability to make a decision or formulate a sentence,
Mhm.
right? All of these things are impacted. So I think, I don't know if you've had this experience, but when I work with people, I think sometimes we only focus on, that feeling refreshed
Mhm.
the next day.
Sure.
And okay, I don't feel refreshed. It's fine. I can drink caffeine or I'll, eat some sugar and I'll power through.
Mhm.
I try to help people understand it is not just about feeling refreshed.
Mhm.
It is about every cell in your body being able to operate correctly. And if it doesn't, that's going to have a ripple effect into other cells and systems not operating properly. And then that is going to impact the choices you do or don't make, which are also going to have a ripple effect into your systems operating properly or not, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
What do you find? Like, what are some, I don't know, maybe arguments people make against, like, oh, I'm fine, I don't need sleep, or I can't help it, it's just the way I am, or there is no way I can't sleep without my TV on.
Sure. Yeah. So I do see a lot of those kind of objections and arguments. So a lot of people do say, I'm just too busy. I don't have time to sleep as much as I need to. So I hear that often. And a lot of times for those people, I say you're the exact type of person who needs more sleep. If you're too busy to focus on self-care and rest, we need to kind of revisit that and re-examine that. I do see a lot of people who kind of do rely on crutches like TV. I can't sleep without my TV. I can't sleep without taking melatonin or this or that supplement. So I think a lot of people do come to rely on sort of crutches like that. And so it comes down to just teaching them that, we can do this without those things. You can sleep naturally. And we know when you leave those things behind, you probably will sleep better. So a lot of it is just education. We meet this resistance, and so it's educating about the why, like why this is better, and then how to do this. So I think a big part of my job comes down to education.
Do you ever, I hear this a lot. Well, I think you said like not giving yourself enough opportunity to sleep. People will say, well, by the time I get the kids to bed and I've wound down from work, then I stay up because that's me time.
Mhm.
And I said, well, what are you doing when you're staying up? Oh, I'm just like watching my shows or whatever I'm doing, but that's me time. And I asked them, well, is quality sleep also me time?
Mhm.
Quality sleep for you that will make you operate at a higher level the next day? Can we look at that as me time? Is that a conversation that you ever have with people?
All the time. And I don't know. So I don't know if you're familiar with this term, but there's actually a term for it called revenge bedtime procrastination. And
I've
so
not heard that.
this is basically where you feel like you didn't have enough me time during the day, or you just had a stressful day. And so you try to compensate by sort of taking revenge on the day for depriving you of that. And so you stay up later by scrolling social media, watching TV or whatever it is just to give yourself that little bit of entertainment or that me time. And before you know it, it's 1 a.m., 2 a.m., then you have to wake up at the same time and you're sleep deprived and then you do it all over again. And so that's revenge bedtime procrastination.
I love that. Revenge bedtime procrastination. Isn't it funny that we're taking revenge on the day when all we're harming is ourselves?
Exactly. Yeah, it's not very productive for us.
I mean, we humans, we are curious creatures for sure. Yeah, I mean, I really believe everything we do or don't do throughout the day is going to impact our ability to sleep. So I think about like back in the day, the options, right? We operated on a day night schedule.
Mhm.
It was daylight, we did all our work. It's dark, we better hide so those animals that wanna eat us don't know that we're there, and, in the darkness, then the brain could release all the chemicals that said, "Hey, you're sleepy." There was no social media to stay up for, there was no concert to go to, there was no hockey game to stay up and watch. You were sleepy, so you went to sleep, right? That you didn't have an option, really,
Mhm.
and then the sun came out, triggered the release of cortisol and adrenaline to wake us up, get us going, and we went about the day.
Mhm.
And then all the other things we also did, we moved our bodies all day long, we ate real food, we did not put poison in our bodies. We had a very real sense of purpose and value and contribution. We did things for fun, we talked to people, we explored, we, shared our victories and our challenges. And then it got dark and we again went and hid and we got quiet and we went to sleep. And like that was life. Well, modern life looks nothing like that. What do you think as far as, someone who's struggling to get quality sleep? There are lots of reasons, right? Is it I can't fall asleep, I fall asleep but I can't wake up, I wake up and then I can't get back to sleep. Like there are multiple issues that could be going on. So how do you coach somebody? Like let's take a client that you would coach and they say, "Seth, I just don't I need to sleep better."
Mhm.
Can you kind of walk through what that would look like?
Yeah. So we kind of start at the beginning. And this is where I sort of sometimes I think of myself as like a sleep detective because it's like, all right, let's take a look at you and just find out what's going on. So usually we'll start just by having a conversation. I'll just kind of find out more about their specific issue, whether that's trouble falling asleep or staying asleep or whatever difficulty they feel like they're having. And then I'll give them a couple of intake forms just to dive deeper. So we'll take a look at routines, we'll take a look at nutrition, we'll take a look at stresses and thoughts about sleep and sleep environment and sleep schedule, all those things. So we want to take this holistic view of what your life looks like right now. And from there, I can start to say, okay, so your problem is that you're having trouble falling asleep. So I'm seeing issues with stress. I'm seeing maybe revenge bedtime procrastination. I'm seeing some habits like when we're having caffeine or things like that. Maybe your sleep schedule, you're giving yourself too much time to sleep or too little time to sleep. So I take all of those aspects, identify the roadblocks that we have, and then start to kind of formulate a plan to clear away those roadblocks. So for that individual, then I would say, okay, so we're going to focus on these things. For this week, we're going to focus on just these two or three things. And here's the science behind them. Here's the why. Here's the how. And then kind of set them loose, do the check-ins and make sure we're on the right track. And then kind of keep that pace over the course of several weeks. And so the goal is to start to clear away those roadblocks to make it easier to sleep, to see those improvements, and to finally set them on a path where we have them maintain those things going forward. And but it really is just kind of individualized for each person because we all have different lifestyles and bad habits and stresses and all those other things.
And I think that is one of the big challenges, right? We are all individuals, and yet we might be living in a space with other individuals who have very different roadblocks and very different stressors and very different schedules. And that could be part of my problem,
Mhm,
right? I often hear, well, it's my so and so that's my sleep issue, right? My
mhm,
kid wakes me up, or my pet, or the person in the bed with me. That's my problem. That's why I can't sleep.
mhm.
What do we do in a situation like that?
Yeah, and I agree. It's when it comes to our bed partners, like somehow we always seem to end up with somebody who's the opposite of us. So I found like in a lot of my clients, they're just opposite sleepers. One has a different schedule, one snores, the other doesn't. One, it's just there's always kind of opposites. So in that situation, it's looking at what are the issues that we're having with the other person. Maybe it's they're making noise, maybe they're restless sleeper, maybe the pet is bothering you in the morning. If it's kids, sometimes it's getting to the root of the problem and having the sleep cush for the kid. But yeah, so sometimes it comes down to compromise as well. If you have two people who are, stealing the bed sheets from each other, maybe we look at having two different comforters, or maybe we look at getting a bigger mattress or things like that. So I think there's a lot of different solutions for different problems, but a lot of it comes down to sort of compromise, getting creative, having sometimes difficult discussions. So yeah, really, again, it's really kind of individualized for each problem, I guess is my point.
Yeah, I know so many, and this again is over the course of talking to lots and lots of people, and even just having people in my own environment. Maybe one of the partners travels a lot. I sleep so much better when they're gone. What does that tell you?
Mhm.
I firmly believe, I mean, we're not designed to sleep together,
Sure.
right? The likelihood you are going to meet somebody who matches all of your sleep needs and you like them during the waking hours is very, very, very slim.
Mhm.
And so that difficult discussion that I know a lot of people are afraid to have, of maybe we need to sleep in separate rooms. I know the people that actually end up doing that, everybody's happier
Yeah.
because a well-rested human is better for everyone and everything.
100% agree. And a lot of times, like I mentioned, that kind of opposite. So one common combination is I see a light sleeper paired with a heavy sleeper. And so the light sleeper is always waking up and they're annoyed with the partner and all those things. And it really can cause a lot of friction. So sometimes the what they call a sleep divorce, some people call a sleep divorce, but sometimes that is the option that works best for people. And then everybody's getting what they need during the night.
Yeah. And even the temperature in the room, right? Everybody
Mhm.
likes a different temperature, different comfort of the mattress, the different schedules. I work with so many people that their partner is on a very different schedule and they want to have their time. Well, that means you're being woken up in the middle of your deep sleep to have your you time with your partner, whatever it is, right? Come say hello when you get home from work, or hey, wake me up when you are going to leave, even though I really need to sleep 6 more hours because I just went to bed. So that compromise again, and everybody appreciating that everybody needs to rest.
Mhm.
And maybe we sacrifice a little bit of these things that we would like to have, like say goodbye to me when you leave or wake me up when you get home, because then our waking hours will all be better and more welcomed and refreshed, and have much healthier interactions with each other. Do you work with couples together? Do you find that one person is interested in improving and the other person isn't?
A lot of times I find that one person sort of spearheads the effort to do this for both people, but I do work with couples on occasion too. And sometimes it's kind of just mediating these discussions and helping them to find that compromise and sort of helping them to see how they both benefit when they make these compromises. So it's not always easy, but whether we end up both everybody in the same bed and we make those improvements, or we do end up separating, as long as we kind of do it from a good place, then I think that we see a lot of benefits. And I think even if you do end up separating, there's strategies to improve it. Maybe people felt like we're worried that they'd be lacking that seeing each other in the morning, or maybe the intimate activity or things like that. So there's always ways, you can schedule the intimate activity a little bit, which doesn't sound as romantic, but it still makes it fit in there. Or you can just make sure that you do have a little bit more of that together time, during the day or when you have opportunities. So there's always ways to make sure that you're still getting what you need from those aspects as well.
And let's talk about alcohol.
Mhm,
I have so many people who still have not made the connection that when you drink, you don't sleep well.
mhm,
And they're shocked that when they stop drinking, they sleep so much better.
mhm.
For people like me and you, I think that is just basic, obvious common sense. And yet, I think it's not. I think people don't make that connection. So I know a lot of people like to have their adult beverages to help them wind down, and then they don't get deep quality sleep. So, how do you work with somebody who maybe is dealing with that kind of issue?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to education as well. And I first noticed this just from personal experience. Just I knew that when I used to, when I'd have drinks, I did not sleep as well that night. And it's still, when I still will go out and have drinks or socialize, I kind of just acknowledge I'm probably not going to sleep as well that night. But yeah, so it comes down to education a lot of times, just kind of help people to understand what is going on when they drink and how that affects their sleep. So it can reduce the amount of rapid eye movement sleep you get, which is that nighttime therapist that we talked about. It can cause a lot of sort of micro wake ups during the night. So you're just kind of this that you might not even realize you're having these tiny wake ups, but they're just kind of make your sleep choppier during the night. Can help you, or can kind of wake you up in the middle of the night with bursts of adrenaline. So you're just kind of wake up and have trouble falling back asleep. So all of those things are going on, and it doesn't even take that much alcohol to do it. I know there's a study that came out a few years ago, and it showed that if you have what they call, I think it was like high amounts of alcohol. So if an adult male has two or more drinks, more than two drinks for that night, or a female has more than one drink during that night, I believe that's it. It can reduce your sleep quality by 40%. So that's a huge, and so even less than that still can reduce your sleep quality by 10 to 20%. It doesn't have to be a binger night to really affect the quality of your sleep and keep you from getting that rest.
Yeah, and I'd like to just add this the same thing happens with sugar,
Mhm.
right? Sugar and white refined processed carbohydrates. So I mean, one of the first questions I ask when somebody tells me they're not sleeping well, I want to look at your nutrition and not just what you're eating, but when are you eating it?
Sure.
Because that actually makes a huge difference. And that was a big eye opener for me when I was a personal trainer. I'm kind of drinking water and eating all day and into the night because I'm up and functioning, I'm hungry, I'm eating, except that we're not supposed to do that. We're
Mhm.
actually supposed to stop eating at some point. And, maybe we're snacking at night. Well, what are you snacking on? You're snacking on some version of sugar, some version of a white refined processed carbohydrate, which has the same impact as alcohol does, right? Once you metabolize that, it actually triggers the release of cortisol. And cortisol is your hormone that makes you be alert and awake, right?
Mhm.
So it sounded like when you said you kind of play detective, you go through their nutritional habits. How much of that do you find is really impacting people's ability to sleep well?
Yeah, and I don't get too deep into it because I'm not a nutritionist or anything, but I do take a look at just a few days of their of have them track their diet for a few days. And so I just want to see again, when are they eating those things or drinking those things and what they're eating. And so a lot of times I will see we have a bowl of ice cream right before you go to sleep, or what the timing of our caffeine intake or things like that, or having a bigger meal right before you go to sleep. I do just take a look at, see if there are general trends. And pretty often I do see that people are kind of engaging in those nutrition choices that aren't going to be effective for their sleep. So sometimes we just get down to more education, kind of here's how that could be affecting you. And here's sort of a better way to time things and maybe look at changing things a little bit just so they're more supportive of your sleep.
Yeah, and for all the listeners, you're going to hear it, and you knew it was coming, right? PFF is your BFF every 2 to 4 hours, most of your calories early and often, not only to stay energized throughout your day, but to help you sleep at night. Because if we go all day without eating, number one, your body thinks there's a food shortage. You're going to kick out cortisol to survive the food shortage. So here I am releasing a hormone that really should be most abundant when we wake up. And then it should gradually decline as we go through the day. So it's at your lowest level when you want to go to sleep. But you are maybe doing things throughout the day that are causing that release of cortisol when it isn't necessary or helpful. And then, oh my gosh, I have no willpower. I can't stop eating at the afternoon and at night, and I can't stop snacking. It's not willpower. You didn't eat enough. So you got to eat early and often, and then you have to stop eating because digestion is a really difficult process on the body. And if you need to get your body into deep restorative sleep, that's impossible to do when you have a system that is on overdrive, trying to digest and process your food. So the nutrition piece I have found plays a huge role, not only for me, but in most people that I work with when we really dig deep. There are multiple things that are preventing them from getting that deep quality sleep. Nutrition is almost always a big piece of it.
That is a great reminder for your audience. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's just a great way to put it too.
And I think when you can understand how a human operates as a whole being, right? Everything's related.
Mhm.
If I don't sleep well, I'm going to eat worse. If I don't eat healthy, I'm not going to sleep well. So when I talk about these things as foundational, you pick one to work on, most likely the other one is going to improve as well. And yet there's probably not one thing that you need to change to make it improve. So do you find that, people will say, well, I did these things you said and I'm still not sleeping, so it just doesn't work?
Not as much. Usually, once we start to make, we start to pile the changes on top of each other, we start to see results. So people are usually pretty patient with the process, and I make sure that we know, like, this is not, to make a pun, this is not an overnight process. It takes kind of, these habits that we're building take time to build. And, whether it's changing your sleep schedule, it takes your body time to get used to that. Whether it's working on the stress and kind of managing stress, that takes time. So I found that people are pretty patient with it. And generally, we do start to see the changes. I think that I hear a lot before people start working with me where they're, people come and they say, I've tried everything. I've tried this. I've tried that. I tried this for a little while. It didn't work. And so I think that, that when they're kind of experimenting on their own and just throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks, that's kind of when I see that sort of impatience there.
Yeah, no, I love that because usually that's when people come to me too. Like, okay, I've tried everything. Clearly, I don't know what I'm doing. And the thing is, you probably do know what you're doing. They just all need to come together in the right way to get you the result. And if we just try a little here and a little there, maybe those are all the pieces of the puzzle. We have to do them as a lifestyle.
Exactly. Or the other part of it is I find that if a lot of people will, they'll take a look at the 20 best things to do to improve your sleep and they try to do all 20 at the same time. They get overloaded. And then after a week or two, they're like, you know what? I'm done with this. Like I'll just tolerate the bad sleep for a while.
Yeah. And again, we really can power through and get through anything, but I hope people want to thrive. I hope people want to be their best. And if we're just powering through, eventually that's going to catch up in some way. Your physical, mental, or emotional well-being is going to be impacted, which means every other element that of your life that touches that is going to be impacted. Your work product, your creativity, your relationships, your desire and motivation, your joy, everything gets impacted. So, one of the things that I hope that I've been encouraging people to do is appreciate that every good thing is good. Whether you feel the immediate effect or not, it's still a good thing. And the more you learn and understand what a human needs in order to thrive, and the more things you can give your human to thrive, the closer to thriving you're going to be. Recognizing that modern life makes all of this really hard, right? We've acknowledged that. There are certainly times when I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to get sleep. And I already know that. But that's not a lifestyle, right? That's the rare occasion. Because if I go too often with that lifestyle, my nutrition starts to be impacted. My energy is impacted. I don't work out like I like to. And all of a sudden, it's this big spiral down. What about, I think this is an important topic to cover. What about women going through the changes of life? Because I see this over and over. I never had a problem sleeping and now I do. Well, I can guarantee what that is. I 100% can tell you what's going on. So what do we do with women who are perimenopausal and maybe even postmenopausal? What kind of guidance do you have?
Yeah, and that is a very common situation because that is kind of one of those times in life where everything changes and sleep starts to become more difficult and just all the changes that are happening make sleep more difficult. So kind of navigating that period is difficult. And so when I'm working with people in that case, we do work on, some of the ways to support what's happening. So if we're, maybe we're hotter at night, here are some ways to help you stay cooler during that night. Maybe work on some sort of relaxation techniques to help with that or to help with stress associated with it. So we're still kind of looking at a lot of the kind of cognitive behavioral pieces of it. For me, it's sort of just supporting the whatever difficulties are associated with that. So maybe it makes sense for the woman to, kind of work with a specialist who kind of deals with hormonal changes and things like that so that they're getting whatever support they need on that end. But if we are having trouble sleeping and we're awake during the night and we're kind of frustrated that we're awake during the night and maybe our behaviors are not supporting sleep, I work on all those aspects and just hopefully, a medical professional who deals with kind of perimenopause and menopause can also be supportive on that end of things as well, the biological portion of it.
Yeah, I think it's such an important point to highlight that there are the behavioral, components, but there are actual chemical components going on as well.
Mhm.
You can't just do one or the other.
Mhm.
You can make all the right choices, but if your chemistry is not where it needs to be to support those choices, you're not going to have the outcome you want. You can have the best chemistry in the world. If all your choices are not supporting your ideal chemistry, you're not going to have the outcome that you want. So if you noticed, and I'm specifically talking to women, but men, you go through this too. If you notice that really your choices have not changed, but the outcome has changed, that is because your chemistry has changed. That's called the aging process, right? That's going through life. And there are things we can do about that these days where maybe, 10, 20 years ago, there really wasn't. So I encourage you to explore those options. And I'm not going to put an age on it because it doesn't matter how old you are. Your body is your body. Your body is doing what it's doing. And, if someone's like, well, that can't be it because you're too young, that is nonsense. So please, I hope if you have that idea, well, that can't be it because I'm too young. Let's revisit that. Something is going on. There's an answer to everything. It can be a little bit frustrating sometimes trying to figure out what the answers are. But, you work with somebody like Seth and you work with a doctor who maybe can support these things as well. If there are those biological changes going on, you can get to a much better place. Before I wrap up, I want to really outline why all of this matters. Why should people care about getting quality sleep and do the hard work to allow themselves to get quality sleep? What are the consequences, whether it's the next day or in a year, 5 years, 30 years down the line? What are some of those things that, maybe our future selves are not going to be super thrilled about if we don't take sleep seriously now?
Yeah, and I think that it really does touch on every aspect of our life and our health, like we've talked about. So, everything from just how we are in our daily life. So, how patient we are with our partner, our kids, how well we're doing at our job, how, you know, just our mood and our focus and all those things that help us to do well in our daily lives. I think it's asking, how do you want to be in your daily life? Do you want to be the best version of yourself, or do you want to be a less rested, tired, unfocused version of yourself? So I think that the daily aspect of it, and then looking at the long term as well. So, there are tons of studies that link poor sleep to everything from chronic disease to just health problems, all from head to toe, cancer, risk of diabetes, Alzheimer's, all of those things when we're not getting enough healthy, quality, restorative sleep. And I think that we all want to age well. We want to be mobile and happy and healthy when we get older. So I think, looking at the short-term picture and the long-term picture, when we sleep better, those pictures are both much improved. And so I think just keeping that why in our heads is a great reason just to remember why it's good to make sure we're sleeping well enough.
And I want to add the mental health component, right? We know that adequate sleep is critical for managing our mental health. We're angry, we're irritable, we're frustrated. Maybe the anxiety kicks in more, depression, bipolar, like all of these things are severely impacted if we're not getting quality sleep. There is a reason that sleep deprivation is used as an interrogation device. There's a reason because you cannot think and function optimally when you are not well rested. Well, if we're doing that to ourselves, we are choosing to not operate at a high capacity. And I hope everybody wants to be the best version of themselves. And it's one of these things that just like any other pillar of wellness, whether it's your nutrition or it's your exercise or it's your stress management, sleep is right there foundational. If you are struggling to get that 7 to 9 hours consistently, I'm going to encourage you to figure out why. And then to maybe make a choice that is going to be different to support you to get sleep. Reach out to Seth. I know he'd be more than happy to guide you through some of these steps because when you're in it, it can be difficult to look at all the elements that might be contributing to it. When you've worked with somebody like Seth, he has seen it all. And so he's going to have an idea that you wouldn't even have. Why would you have it? You've never even been exposed to it. So if you have tried it all and it's not working, please take that next step and let a professional guide you. Before we officially sign off, is there anything else, Seth, that we have not touched on that you think is important?
I feel like it's been a pretty wide-ranging discussion. I've loved kind of hearing your views on sleep too. So no, I think we've covered a lot of the bases.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining. And I know as we continue this month of wellness, everybody is focusing on some aspect of their well being that they want to devote a little time and attention to. If sleep is yours, then let's do it and let's all have a good night's sleep. And in the meantime, Seth, once again, thank you for joining us. And everybody listening, now you get to go and be a better being.
Thank you for listening to the Be a Better Being podcast. Michelle and Sasha hope that what you heard today inspires you to embrace this journey of life with an open mind, a kind heart, and a willingness to learn and evolve. If you enjoyed the content, please help spread their message by subscribing, sharing, and leaving a 5-star review. If you have a show topic idea or would like to be a guest, please visit betterbeings.net and fill out a contact form. Until next time, go and be a better being.